Hi there, good evening and welcome to this Ibrox. It's your Sunday session. My name's Scott Patterson. If you're joining us on your Sunday night, I thank you very much for taking your time out tonight. A very busy Sunday. If you've been asleep for the last 30 minutes or so, let me tell you that Andy Devlin from The Sun has confirmed that there is big news coming from Rangers, and I think it's safe to say that a change in the manager situation is imminent, perhaps not tonight, but I do reckon the first Monday in October we will see a new manager, or certainly an imminent change of manager being made very, very clear indeed. We will do that tonight. We'll cover it in a bit of depth. There is lots to discuss, as you can probably imagine. Where do we go next, for example? Joining me in the pod, JB from Liverpool. Hi, JB. How are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, very well. Rangers, as I've said a few times, Rangers aside, all good. And my hand's quite sore today. I've been refreshing Twitter like it's transfer deadline day. But yeah, we are where we are. But all good that aside.
And contributor number 2, Iain Mitchell. Hi, Iain. How are you getting on?
Yeah, all good, mate. I think I've just realised I've not been on a pod after a loss before. So
oh, wow.
To see how this goes. A wee bit different.
Well, listen, welcome to the club. You're in for an absolute treat. Goodness me. Don't forget, if you're not following us on social media, you can. We're available everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok and Threads. Don't forget to comment and like and subscribe to everything we do. Hit your notifications on and you will get a notification every time we go live on a Sunday or a Monday or a Wednesday. Anytime we do our work from the gantry. I see that the comments down the right hand side of the screen are going mad. If you want to really understand if something is happening or not, Fabrizio Romano has confirmed that Michael Beale, I think, is imminently not the Rangers manager. JB, the agenda has been ripped to bits. I think it's quite safe to say this is obviously breaking news as we're getting it. Where do you stand on it as things stand just now, JB?
Yeah, I think the writing was on the wall, wasn't it? I think for a lot of people, it could have happened sooner. I think it could have happened straight after the Old Firm a few weeks back, and I don't think anybody at that point would have been particularly shocked or disappointed, which is never nice. Obviously, there's a human element that sits behind all of this. You never see anybody want to lose the job and different things, but it was getting to the point in the word was used yesterday. It was getting untenable. So in terms of the reaction we were seeing in the stands yesterday, there was always going to be a change quite quickly. I'm pleased that the board have done it quickly. I think if this had rumbled on another week, any credibility that they did have, I think would have been right in the river. So yeah, it brings a midst of excitement as well, I would say. It might give the fans a bit of a boost that we've needed, because what we've seen on the pitch this season has been totally unacceptable. So yeah, wait and see what happens in the next few days. Will definitely be interesting, as it always is with Rangers.
Iain, this is obviously something that we've went through before, almost exactly a year ago. I'm really keen to know where you're coming from and where's your mind tonight, knowing that we're going to be looking for a 19th permanent manager.
It's a hard one, because like JB says, I think this was what we expected to happen, what we wanted to happen, but I'm a little bit surprised that we've gone ahead and gone through it in a good way, to be honest.
Yeah.
I personally wanted him gone after the Celtic game, because I think we all knew we might leave it too late, and now I'm just a bit worried that we've done that. 7 points is a lot to catch up on. We know how consistent Celtic are in this league, so that's one issue. But as JB says, it's good it's done. Got a big game on Thursday now, and hopefully a new man can come in and sort of galvanise the squad a little bit and get some excitement going. It's becoming a bit of a chore going to Ibrox, and hopefully we can spin that around a little bit now.
And listen, one of the things that I very rarely cover things that other guys do on this podcast. However, if you're a follower of this Ibrox, you will know that Kyle McLean, every Wednesday night when he starts, he kicks off with an "on this day." And curiously enough, on this day last year, and it feels like ages ago, Rangers went to Tynecastle and pumped Hearts 4-0 in their own backyard, thanks to a double from Antonio Cholak, Ryan Kent scoring, and Alfredo.
Sorry to interrupt you, Scott. That's the announcement from the club.
Is that a bit confirmed, JB? Yeah. Do you have anything in front of you officially?
It just came up on the Twitter headline, or X, whatever you call it now. Rangers can confirm.
There you go. So we now know that Rangers are now seeking their next manager. And listen, I think you're right, JB. In the first instance, I think it's a great point. There's a human approach to it. There has to be a bit of an empathetic approach to it, I think, as well. Guy's lost his job and moved his family back up here again after moving down south. So I think there's a couple of different threads that will continue to come from this as time passes. Listen, I had great intentions of speaking about the Aberdeen game, but this is going to take up the huge part of the night. I'm not going to lie about it. JB, Tommy and Craig were in the gantry yesterday at Ibrox, and one of the things that they did discuss in a bit of depth was the appropriateness, if you like, of having a director of football in ahead of a new manager. And of course, we're commenting that before we knew that, before we were aware, rather, that Michael Beale was going to be out of job. We now know that's the case. Speak to me about this DOF football, the sporting director, effectively the Ross Wilson role. Do we need that in place first before we get someone else in to take the team?
Yes, if they are down the road of getting a director of football. However, if we're starting the search for a director of football now, then no. Do you know what I mean? I think let's have it right. Football's been going for hundreds of years, and a director of football hasn't always been there. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't there particularly in the Souness days. Walter Smith. I don't think there was one with Dick Advocat. Obviously, Advocat moved upstairs when McLeish come in. That didn't last long. I appreciate it's the sexy thing to do now to have a director of football who keeps an eye on all of your football from the ground up. It keeps a consistent playing style and everything else that goes with it. I think a director of football is great if things are going well. However, the position we're in right now, we just need the best man for the job. We just need to get a winner in the door. I'll worry about the director of football afterwards. Don't get me wrong, as I say, if we are quite far down the road with one, then great. But if we're not, then I wouldn't be risking it, because that's gonna take a longer process. The only thing you can hope is that if that person is ready, you'd like to think if that director of football is ready, they've got a shortlist, good to go. There was a lot of talk when Ross Wilson was in place that he had this list of managers. I think Hasselhoeven from Southampton, I think, if memory serves me right, I think he was quite heavily involved in that. So something like that would have been a natural fit at the time for somebody that's worked with someone before. But at the end of the day, if we're looking for a director of football that's going to come in and try and direct to play similar football to what we've been playing this season, then that's definitely not what we need. We need someone that's going to rip it up, someone that's going to be quite aggressive. Do we need an experienced director of football? I don't know. I mean, the Ajax model, they seem to do quite a good job of appointing ex-players. I know we do like to go down the staunch avenue sometimes, but whether that's what we need right now, I'm just not sure. I just want to see somebody standing at the side of the pitch that gives a good representation of Rangers Football Club and a winner. Gerrard ticked them boxes from a winner's perspective. You could see it in his eyes whenever we lost. You felt as if it was almost he was hurting as much as us. These coaches nowadays and these new form coaches, you can see it in their eyes. They're almost like, what did I do wrong, as opposed to actually disappointed about losing. So round about the houses, in terms of your question around director of football, I honestly don't know what would be best.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, this is a developing story. So a couple of guys are jumping in and out of the chat, just confirming what I assume the statement is saying. Obviously, we've not got a statement in front of me just now. I did try to bring up my Twitter, but I just almost ordered Twister, which is a concern. Stephen Davis seems to be the guy that's been put in charge from an interim perspective. Alex Ray, who comes out of nowhere, is going to be involved alongside the current coach in and around the academy, Stephen Smith. Brian Gilmer's involved as well, who's directly involved in the B team, supporting David McCallum and Colin Stewart, who is of course there and has been there for a long time. So it looks like, Iain, everyone is basically being moved out, and we will be seeing a full new management team coming back in over the fullness of time. There's no danger that the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys that have been mentioned will be effectively Stephen Davis won't be the new 19th manager of Rangers Football Club. There's no danger of that, but they're obviously going in to steady the ship get them through Thursday night in Cyprus, and probably get them through Paisley next Sunday, which won't be an easy trip.
No, certainly not. And that's the one I'm more worried about in terms of this coming week, to be quite honest. But no, I'm just trying to get my head around the statement, really. We have gone like uber staunch with this lineup. I'm not against it, to be fair. I think it makes sense. It's a guy who's in around the club, knows kind of what the fans are expecting. That was my worry, that we brought in an interim who didn't really get Rangers and get Scottish football and stuff like that. And you have that little grace period. So I think this does make sense in a lot of ways. Whether it's getting a director of football in place and then a manager, or the manager that we want isn't available just now. There's so many variables that we're never going to know. Yeah. So Davis in, Alex Ray's got a good bit of knowledge. I thought he was still coaching down in the Championship, like Redden or something recently, wasn't? Was he doing something?
He certainly was involved down there recently.
Yeah.
He's not involved with Paul Ince in it somewhere, I think, very recently. He's clearly not doing that. I've seen him doing some media stuff back and forward in and around the camp at Ibrox. So he's obviously still in and around the club. Interesting how the gut reaction is to go to Alex Ray to come in and assist Stephen Davis. That surprises me a little bit. There are other guys they could have went to. Listen, there's two guys who I think could have been involved in an interim period with maybe a view to it being something more permanent. And that is obviously your guys like Kevin Thompson and, dare I say, Barry Ferguson. People won't like it, but they're definitely guys that could have came in and probably done exactly. Neil McCann, RF372 suggests Neil McCann as well, who I think could have done a very similar job to Alex Ray. So I'm maybe a little bit surprised that Alex Ray comes really out of nowhere into the group, but needless to say, goodness me, we wish them all the very best. It can't be an easy time to be applying your food at Ibrox, never mind being the leader, JB. Listen, I know you travel up from down south for every home game effectively. Before you left yesterday, what was your gut reaction travelling north for a game against Aberdeen at Ibrox?
Yeah, no, we were talking offline. My general feel for yesterday is we were either going to win 3-0 or we were going to lose 3-0. And that's just been a reflection of the games that we've seen this season. The Motherwell game, we had 2 off the line. I don't care whether the stats tell us that we were good. The eye test sometimes just doesn't fail you. We got pummeled for about 20 minutes against Motherwell at home. So once you kind of seen that, you know it's not great. It's not looking. Things needed to change quickly in terms of when we were getting got at. We just looked as if we were drowning. That was also the case in a number of games. PSV, just everything they hit went in, and because other than the couple that Butland could get to. So it's almost the case with this Rangers team. If we go one behind, I've got very little faith that they're actually bringing it back. So it's one that we're going to have to take it on the chin in terms of the last result. But you just hope that the current team that are coming in now are going to just try and get a message over to the players how important the next 2 games are, and just try and steady the ship. But yeah, long trip up yesterday and long trip back, but. We are where we are. As I say, I've seen worse. We've been through worse collectively, albeit I've never seen an atmosphere like that at Ibrox. But we've been through worse days as a club, and hopefully we start to look forward now, which I know we've said a few times over the last couple of years. But we've got no other option, have we? So yeah, let's see what happens.
Iain, you know what I have said recently, and I think I've said it on the podcast previously. I'm very aware that when we watched Rangers recently, I felt it's very much been the same movies with the same actors, and I do think that there's some of maybe the senior members of the group that probably do have to step up and take a bit more, not leadership, that's not the right word, but just take more responsibility. You look at the sort of the back four. We've got the captain, Goldson. I think Ben Davies or John Shooter, whoever's playing in there alongside Connor Goldson, gets a bit of a pass, to be frank. And Borna, more often than not, when he's playing at left back. These are 3 guys who I think you just look for more from them as far as responsibility is concerned, and just that, do you know what I mean? puff out their chest and drag everyone through it. We're all of a similar ilk to we've watched, and I go back to Barry Ferguson. We've watched Barry Ferguson drag Rangers through games, sometimes week on week. There's no one in that team that can do it just now. There's literally no one who's dragging us through games. And in big games at Ibrox, you have to have someone who's prepared to put their cock on the block and absolutely drag you and everyone else on the journey throughout the game to the 90th minute. We don't have anyone like that just now. Rangers 1979. Thanks for watching tonight. Captaincy has to change now. Also, Tab has been a serial failure in that role. Nothing changes until he's removed of that duty. I almost think by bringing in Stephen Davis, it suggests that absolutely won't change because Stephen Davis knows these guys so well.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, but I don't think the captaincy thing these days is as big as it was 15, 20 years ago and beyond. I think it's more individually, everyone should be pushing on a bit more. I mean, we've relied on Tav for 3-4 seasons at least now to have the moments, be the player. And I think this squad still do that. There's so many times where, like Cifuentes, for example, he's just come in the door. But anytime he gets the ball, he looks to his right and gives it to Tav. There's no like individual responsibility. He should be going, right, I'll drive at the team. I'll make that killer pass. I'm not having a big chest at Cifuentes here. It's just an example I see so often. Goldson gets the ball, gives it to Tav, and it's like, right, Tav, go do something. On you go. And Tav isn't that player. Well, no, he's not the player he was even last season. It's horrible to say, but he's not that same guy. So he's not got that in him to do that and make that spark. And if Tav isn't doing it, that's when it leads back to your point. No one else is doing it. There's no one else who has the craft, the ability, the arrogance to say, I'm a Rangers player, you're an Aberdeen player, you're a Motherwell player, you're a Livingston, I'm better than you kind of thing. I just don't see that in this squad. But I think a lot of that comes from not only the tactics, but the way Beale sort of acted as well at the sides a little bit. Like where I sit, just sort of quite low down the Govan. It's a good view of Beale, albeit from a mile away, but I can see everything he's doing. He just sits there most of the time. He just stands there a lot of the time. There's no Walter Smith barking at players. There's no screaming at them. And I'm not saying that's going to make us a better team. Like it's not the 80s. I don't think that works as well either. But if you're not getting that enthusiasm and drive from the manager, it then just feeds down the whole club through captain, vice captain, midfield, attack. I don't think it's a go for Tav kind of thing, this whole issue. I think there's just tactics issue, management issue, this issue, that issue, personnel issue, transfer issue. There's so much to this.
Absolutely.
That all goes back to Beale for me.
Do you know, JB, I think Ian's absolutely right. One of the things I've said, and I've said it to other people, is that we, of the guys that sit alongside Michael Beale, Harry Watling hasn't come and running off his chair to scream at someone for letting the ball go or doing something they're not doing right. Neil Banfield certainly isn't doing the same thing. Damien Matthew isn't doing the same thing. And previously, while I think we shouldn't be in a situation where we're encouraging people to obviously roar and shout and get right in about people's skin. When you're getting beat 3-0 or 3-1 or 1-0 down at Aberdeen, when you've went 1-0 down at Celtic, sometimes it needs just someone voice outside to say, wow, we're making a right arse of this and we better get our finger out or we've got a real big problem. And I think too often, I actually think in the last two regimes, under Giovanni and under the now recently finished Michael Beale regime, there's been no one on the bench who's been prepared to come off and really shout the odds. And it's high time some of them got that, to be perfectly frank.
No.
Oh.
Look at big clubs. If you look at the likes of Manchester City and even down Liverpool, for example, obviously two clubs quite close to me, and they're best managers and best coaches in the world, but you see their assistants, they're out, they're fiery, they're in the referee's ear, they're having a go, they're talking to players, and they might be coordinating things, but one thing's for certain, you do see a lot of more assistant managers getting yellow cards and red cards because of the fact that they're almost taking one for the manager.
Yeah,
I don't see any of this current coaching team, and to be honest, it's been the last couple of years now that we haven't really seen that. I think Beale under Gerrard, I think was almost your guy that was going to jump up, because I don't think there's there's probably no denying that he's probably quite a good coach. Do you know what I mean? And but is he a good manager? So he might jump up and tweak things. We've seen it quite a lot in Europe. When we were there and a couple of times against them, where we just tweaked something quite subtly, and you could see that Beale was probably the guy that stood behind that. But in terms of that extra little bit of passion, that's one thing I'll be massively looking for from the next Rangers manager, is passion. I think we need somebody as a bit of a figurehead that you go, you know what, he gets it. I want me players to be going into that changing rooms. And I know Iain said it's almost like it's not the 80s, but I want me players to be going in that room, going to that changing room, going, oh no, he's gonna go right through, is he? Yeah? As opposed to somebody picking up a clipboard. Do you know what I mean? And if you look, well, there's been a little bit of nastiness in there. Do you know what I mean? If you look at the likes of Souness or Walter. Alex McLeish, even Advocat to a slightly lesser extent, you almost thought, if they go, you'll know about it. But needless to say, the guys who haven't been particularly successful, your modern coaches, which I think I said earlier, we haven't seen it. So your Warburtons, your Pedros we'll put into one side for a second, because he didn't know whether he was coming or going in. And then obviously Gio for all he done for the club as a player, and again might be another really nice guy. But if you're getting beat 1-0, you need someone to go in there and give you a bit of inspiration, someone to boot you up the arse. I just don't think we've seen it for a wee while. Now that person hasn't got to be a uber staunch character. Do you know what I mean? It would probably help because of the fact that they can say, right, this isn't good enough and this is why. But to your point, I don't think that there was certainly this manager. He's got his backroom team wrong, in my opinion. He filled it full of his yes men. It kind of felt like in all of the interviews when he kind of came in, it was almost Mick's the boss, Michael's the boss. He's going to be having the final say. It's all for him. It's all for him. Whereas I'd like to have seen someone goes, well, if things aren't going well, I want to make sure that I've got me say my manager knows that. Do you know what I mean? But it's that is definitely something I want to see in the profile of the new management setup. Whether it be the guy who's at the front, I certainly want a couple of people behind him that are going to go to war for him, go to war for the club if needed.
Yeah, and listen, I think you're absolutely right. I'm maybe on the other side of the fence a little bit. I think some of these players absolutely need someone to come in and give them a right toe in the rear end. Frankly, I really do. I think there's quite a few of them that have just got away with treading water for the last couple of years. And I do think there's one or two of them that need a bit of a harsh word. Listen, I've got the official club statement in front of me now, so if you bear with me, I'll read it out to you. Rangers Football Club can confirm it's parted company with the men's first team manager Michael Beale. The Rangers board would like to put on record their thanks to Michael and his staff for their efforts in joining the club last November. Results this season have fallen short of what everyone connected to Rangers would expect. Therefore, the decision was reached today to terminate the contracts of the manager, as well as the contracts of coaches Neil Banfield, Damien Matthew, Harry Watling and Jack Aid. I'm always pleased to announce that Stephen Davis will lead the interim management team. The team will consist of former Rangers player and hugely experienced coach Alex Ray, former Rangers player and current coach Stephen Smith, coach Brian Gilmer and goalkeeping coach Colin Stewart. Rangers chairman John Bennett confirmed that I'd like to thank Michael for his dedicated work since rejoining the club last November. It's clear that results have fallen well short of the board's, Michael's and our supporters' expectations. The search process for the new manager is already underway. I wish Stephen Davis and the interim management team every success. They will remain in charge for as long as it takes to make the right appointment. So, listen, that brings us quite nicely on to, you would imagine, the decision makers at the club, and that is John Bennett and James Bisgrove. Iain, do we trust them to bring in the right person?
I'm probably going to go against the grain a little bit here and not berate the board too much, because when Beale came in, I thought that made sense. I was quite happy at the appointment. I think a lot of people were, but they're not going to admit that at this point. But I think it made sense. And yeah, you can look back and say he wasn't experienced. He was at QPR for 5 minutes, etc., etc. But I was excited by it, so I can't then go back and say, "Oh, how dare they get him?" Then, etc. Whatever. Like I say, I would have sacked him sooner, but they have acted quick after yesterday. So again, bit of credit for that.
Yeah.
And Beale got backing, which I don't think previous managers got. But again, that's not on this board in particular. So we need to give him the chance. I think we all know that our group chat proof there's no outstanding candidate that we want in at the moment. There's so many variables, so many potential, but I've not seen a name yet, other maybe than Graham Potter, that I'm overly excited by. And again, I don't think he's that realistic. It's just a kind of bit of a dream to get him, I think. So when you go that level down, who knows who it could be. So I'm more than happy to give them the chance to get it right, and then go for it from then.
JB, one of the things that I ask Iain about John Bennett and James Bisgrove, there's been loads of bits and pieces about James Bisgrove in the last wee while. We saw at the weekend that Edmiston House has sold something like 30 million pints, which he was delighted to share with the fans, which is great for Edmiston House, frankly. Well done to tenants for giving us all that beer. But we're ultimately a football club, and we must get this next appointment right, because we're now into October, incredibly, 7 points adrift, out the Champions League with a whimper. The display in Holland was a disgrace. We had a shocking afternoon against Celtic on our own patch. We've had a terrible afternoon the weekend past against Aberdeen. I'll ask you, do you think John Bennett and James Bisgrove can get the right person in? Do you trust them to go and get someone in, ground running, and crucially, and this is really important, come January, how much money is he going to have? Michael Beale has just horsed away however many million, 12, 13 million in the summer. We're going to imagine have to pay off him and the four others maybe between 2 and 3. So there's a lot of money went out on this football club in the last 6 months, not even that. Is there going to be more money available for a newbie to come in January and fork out?
So to your first question, do I trust the board to make the right appointment? I'm kind of going to go with Iain. I think we've got to hope. Do you know what I mean? You say no, but I think it's one of them. You can argue for both sides. I think whoever we bring in, let's have it right. It's not going to be the right man in everybody's eyes. Everything's going to be opinionated. We might bring somebody in that might be an older, let's just say someone from the older generation who's maybe been around the block and done it and gone right, has proved that they can win things. Let's have it right. If they're not at a club at the moment, and if they've got all this success behind them, then, as I say, they would have been. There's that many teams around European football that they would have been picked up. Do you know what I mean? So we are going to be looking for a manager that needs to revitalise their career. Do you know what I mean? So the other option is to go down the modern coach. So somebody that has proved that they can, they've had a bit of success and relative success. So I mean, Iain's talked about Potter there. My only concern with Potter is it a philosophy manager of somebody that might have us playing lovely football, but does he know what it's like to manage a team like Glasgow Rangers? Like, he was given obviously the best part of £1 billion by Chelsea, and I appreciate that's a bit of a basket case of a club at the best of times, but it's almost a case of, is he the guy that's going to give the bollockings out that we've just said earlier that I want from my next manager? Is he the guy that's going to, oh my God, Graham's going to be doing his nut when he goes in there? Or is he going to be pointing to the clipboard because he's a real good coach? Which Brighton's expectations, Swansea's expectations.
Oh, I think I've lost you, JP.
Just wonder whether he's got that balance. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, you've got to give Iain's, but you've got to give the board the benefit of the doubt. They did fund the manager to a point. Now, obviously, there was always going to be a massive need to revitalise the squad and refresh it. Do I think we're in a better position than where we were on this day last year when we beat Hearts 4-0, which you were going into earlier? No, I don't. I think we kind of had a bit of a style and a structure, but we needed to kind of improve the quality that was in that starting 11. But we've just gone backwards massively, haven't we? So I think it's going to, so jumping back to your question, do I think the board will get the right person? I think they'll consult. I think they'll have to, with no director of football being in there, I'd like to think it wasn't up to them to make the call. I'd like to think they utilised the contacts that you'd like to think they both have got in the game. And hopefully make sure that it's not the fans' choice. It's not who the fans want. Fans have proved, the Rangers fans have proved, and we touched on it earlier, the minority will now say, I told you so about Beale, do you know what I mean? And there was people didn't want Gerrard, there was a handful of people that didn't want Gio at the time, but they kind of come out after the event, after the ship's kind of sailed. So whoever we bring in, it's going to have to be backed, and you're just going to have to hope that the manager gets the best out of this, what I think is a very average group of players that we've got at the club at the moment. Try and get them through to January with a League Cup. I mean, what an opportunity for a manager to come in and their first responsibility is to win a cup in, hopefully, over the next 8 weeks or so. So yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting few days.
I was going to just, before I jump in, Scott, sorry, if Stephen Davis wins the League Cup and closes that gap of 7 points, then when does that start becoming a conversation? Because if he's doing well, is he the next long term?
And listen, I think that's a fair point. I think whatever happens now is we're in a state of flux in the sense that we know that there's 7 points in it. I've read over the weekend that the league is done, it's gone. We're not going to make that back. I think that's a little bit up for debate, to be perfectly honest with you. But I think it's a fair point. Do you know what I mean? If Stephen Davis manages to close the gap, wins at Hampden the semi-final in the first instance, assuming he's still the guy in charge for the semi-final, of course, and then he gets maybe the opportunity to lead the team out in a final that, let's not beat around the bush here. That's a tournament we have to win this year. So the importance of having the right person in the job to win that tournament is equally as important as having the right person long term. For me, that's a trophy that we won regularly up until 2011, I think, was the last time we won it. We have to make sure we win that this year. There's never a better opportunity for a Rangers manager, whoever he or she is. Shirley Kerr, if you're watching, we're not ruling you out. You can come in and really put yourself as a marker for that job on a full-time basis. Listen, one thing I would like to say, I brought it up on screen. Derek Zero donated to the channel £1.99, which we're hugely grateful for. Thank you, Derek. Really appreciate that. If you are getting involved in the comments, it's a bit wild in there tonight, I have to say. So we will try and bring them up as best we can. I've seen lots of names in there, Iain. I saw Michael O'Neill, which I don't think would be too terrible an appointment, to be perfectly honest with you, but the one that really got my attention was Neil Warnock. Now, while I'm not suggesting that Neil Warnock would be the man, what a giggle it would be him coming up to manage Rangers for 6 months or so, would it not?
It would not be a dull moment. Yeah, it's and as we're looking for somebody to give him a bollocking, then he ticks the box. Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like it'd be quite likely of us to either go experienced director of football and not very experienced manager, or the opposite way. So not Warnock exactly, but a manager of Warnock's experience, I think, could suit us if we're going for a director of football that's up and coming.
Yeah.
So I think there's a balance to be struck there, which could be a perfect blend. It could be what we're kind of looking for, because the markets we're in just now are not top tier for either of those positions.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a sort of balance to that. Do you get someone that's on the way up and a little bit unknown just now, or do you go for a Warnock? But I mean, if Warnock came in, I don't think I'd like it, to be honest. I don't know if he quite matches what I want, but I let the fun begin. Yeah, throw some more names in. It's all about now.
JB, what's your ingredients for a successful Rangers manager? Next guy that comes in, what does not who does he have to be, but what does he have to have?
A winner, pure and simple, and somebody that we know is a winner from the outset, and he makes his players look and feel like winners as well. I think it needs to be somebody that is there's somebody that obviously represents the club well, but someone that you just wouldn't want to mess with. For me, again, for whether I'm going a wee bit too old school, but yeah, I want someone that's going to stand on that line and go, you know what, I'm proud to have him as my manager. I'm proud he's going into battle for us. Do you know what I mean? Both on and off the pitch. Someone that's not going to stand any messing. Someone that's going to, when he speaks, people listen. When he walks into a room, then the room goes silent. Type of guy. Now that's just my preference. You know what I mean? I'd probably think the younger generation would probably want somebody with a fancy name and someone with a someone that you can maybe watch just one of his seminars online or something. But yeah, that's certainly what I'm looking for. But again, who is that? To Ian's point earlier about a modern day captain, what does that look and feel like? You're not getting Richard Goffs and Terry Butchers and the likes going to be rocking up anymore. It's not in the current game. It's not the style. By all accounts, Tav does a lot for the team off the pitch. Now, which is absolutely fine. I've got no problem with that. But I want, and again, just to continue the question, I want my captain to be a captain on the pitch. I want him to be the guy that, you know what, is leading from the front. I want my captain to be the person that you think will break the leg to put the ball over the line. I don't want my captain to be the guy that backs out of a 50-50 at home to Aberdeen or a 60-40 in his favour, and then his arse has dropped out of it. You know what I mean? I think the whole, I know that goes all the way to the top. You want your chairman to almost be the figurehead. I'd like to see obviously Bennett and Bisgrove they're almost a dangerous mix, aren't they? It's almost the case of touting Big Dunk. I've seen Big Dunk at Everton a few games, and he's got off to a good start at Inverness, but yeah, someone of that ilk with a wee bit more coaching ability about them, I would say.
Do you know, we're joking. It's difficult to laugh tonight. You're very aware that you're kind of looking at a managerless club now, and I loathe to use the term rudderless, but things are not good, and I don't think you can underestimate the importance of the next week in the first instance, because we've obviously got a big Europa League tie. We've got a trip to Paisley on Sunday afternoon, and then we've got the break, and it'll be really important for me, Ian, as to how the break's used. I don't know if I would like Stephen Davis and Alex Rae, with the best will in the world, still to be in charge the other side of the international break. I would almost like someone to be in charge for when the guys, not a lot of our players, go out and play international football. We saw from the last game back, when they came back after international duty, they'd all been training for 2 weeks. So a core of the squad will be in and around the training centre. So it's really important that I think we have someone in there who can work with these players immediately, effectively straight away, get them into a better mindset and into the new manager's way of thinking. I wonder where you sit on that, Ian, as far as the importance of getting that new person in this next 3-week period.
Yeah, massively. I think this next week or 2 weeks is all about touting out names, doing first round interviews, second round interviews, whatever that comes to. Because people will say the league's done and stuff like that. I mean, it's the 1st of October. The league's not done. Celtic aren't the Celtic of the last few seasons. And as we've touched on, there's a massive game for the semi-final coming up. So there's plenty to play for. Good run in Europe potentially sitting there waiting for us. So the quicker we get this sorted, the better. But I will caveat that with, I think director of football is a position that you don't want to bring in a manager and then a director of football. So it depends what we're doing with that. I mean, I think we need to know what we're doing with that, and whether Bisgrove and co know that just now, I don't really know, because I would expect a director of football by this point. So this is where I touched on the whole Stephen Davis thing. If he's doing well, I'm not saying he should get the job, because I saw about 10 comments coming at me for that. So that's not what I'm saying here. But if we are planning a director of football, I think that has to be a priority. But then I know that's a much longer process, and we need someone in the door now. So whether we patch the director of football until the summer and go this manager only way, but we saw how that worked with Beale. So there's just so many different variables this can come from and go to. And I've got no idea how we're going to set this up. But yeah, we need something sorted and then confirmed, just to get a bit of stability in that for sure.
JB,
sorry, yeah. Could any of these guys take the squad on Thursday?
I will. One of them will clearly have to. I wouldn't be at all surprised.
I'm just thinking from a badges perspective, there needs to be some. Let's get maybe Alec Ray's done them in the background or something. Because Davis and Championship, I'd be amazed if he's got his A license this soon. But
I think that may be indeed one of the reasons why Alex Ray's been drafted in. To be honest with you, I think there's awareness that if Michael Beale was to leave and take X amount of bodies with him, i.e. all his bodies, we would end up with Alex Ray in there just to support Terry Monroe. It's good to have him back. And believes that Davis has has the badges as Hugo Bear. Sort of clarifies one thing. I do want to read a couple of quotes, if I may, from the game yesterday. We now know, of course, it was Michael Beale's last game in charge at Ibrox. And this is what Michael Beale said to the BBC Scotland post-match. A horrible result, that's for sure. First half, we started the game well. We had 3 or 4 big chances to go in front. Then we get caught in a set play we don't do well enough with. After the sending off, things become more difficult. In terms of chances, we had the most. It's schoolboy. It's not good enough. People not tracking the runners. We've beaten 3-1 because of that today. People are ultimately not doing their jobs right. It's not good enough for me, the players or anyone at the club. Rightly, the criticism will be justified tonight. We thought we had turned the corner. At all times, you had a team on the pitch capable of getting a better result. The position we find ourselves in so early in the season is poor. It's a really bad day for everybody. We'll have to be prepared for Thursday night. We're light in numbers and I need people to stand up and be counted for. On his future, he hadn't spoken to anyone about it. Everyone realises where we are and it needs to be better. We end up getting beat up a scoreline we would never lose by here at Ibrox off a team like Aberdeen. In reference to the fans, and this is where I'm going to go with this, JB, I'll come to you in a second. The fans want to see results. I get it. I understand what I was getting myself involved in. We need to make it up to them. Everyone needs to do better. We have to take it on because we take the praise as well. I'm more than confident with my work. Less talk, more action. The same quote that came in the press post-match. Michael Beale said sometimes the supporters could help the players more. Where do you go with that?
I'll try not to swear. I think the problem you've got with these managers, and I would include some of our players, they've never been fans as much as they might think that they maybe have been. They've never got up at 6 o'clock to do a 6-hour journey. They've never jumped on a flight to go and stand in the piss and rain and all over the arseholes of Europe. It's one of them. It's easy to say that. I'll be honest, I didn't like the booing of Dessers going off the pitch. I'm not a massive fan of that. I felt that was a bit that bordered on personal. Now I appreciate it was a bad day all round. I don't think we should really, as a Rangers supporter, we should have a wee bit more class than that in terms of that level of abuse. I could get the frustration. I think booing the team as a whole, I think you get it. Do you know what I mean? For me, there wasn't enough effort there collectively. I thought we were tactically naive, certainly in the second half. Yeah. So I kind of get that. But in terms of the support that this club has gave this group of players and the club as a whole over the years, I think that almost feels like a wee bit of a parting shot that for me. You'd hope not, because I'd say you'd like your managers to leave on the best of terms, as I'd like to think Gio did. Yeah. But I think he's just clutching at straws, isn't he? As I say, as a fan base, we're demanding. And at the end of the day, if you can't accept that, then that Rangers isn't the place for you. I think Mark Warburton made the comment that his heart sunk when we held up, whether we held up a banner or was it the card saying going for 55? Yeah. He said his heart stopped, his stomach dropped. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, so this was after he'd left Rangers, I was like, right, mate, that's why you're not the manager of Rangers Football Club anymore. Do you know what I mean? I'd like my manager, if they've seen that when that went up, go, you know what, that's a bit of me, that. I'm going to do all that I can to do that. One thing I wouldn't, what my manager's saying is my stomach dropped. Do you know what I mean? So I think it needs to be, again, back to them characteristics that you said earlier. It's someone that just knows that they're going to win and they're going to give it their all to do so. But yeah, really poor for me, that.
Iain, JB refers to the booing, which was I'm with JB. I don't think it's the way that we should conduct ourselves. We can be frustrated and pissed off. I totally get that, but I do think that the booing yesterday, Tam McCann, I think uses a really appropriate word for it, and that it was toxic. I think that's absolutely fair. Where do you stand on that? I think that it's probably a sad reality in where our seasons went, that we have spoke quite a lot about the players being booed off so far this season, and it's the end of September.
Yeah, Beale saying the fans should be given more kind of thing. I mean, it's just deluded for me. The players should be giving us more from the first game of this season, to be honest. I mean, I always try and be as calm as possible at Ibrox when things are going wrong, and sort of take a breath and think, right, let's relax here. These are good players, just having a bad moment, etc. and that. But no, individually, terrible. Managerial, terrible. Results, terrible. Ibrox is boring to go to just now and to watch. And I feel for JB having such a commute to get there. I'm 20 minutes to Dumbarton, and I'm still dreading every minute of that journey going there. I don't know. So it's just, you should be going to Ibrox full of like excitement and a buzz and thinking, oh, I'll see good football, I'll see goals, I'll see tempo, great passing. There's none of that. There's none of that. And for that, the interview from Beale did seem very defensive to me. Like, it wasn't Bale's fault, it was the injury's fault, and it was the fans' fault, and it was the players not doing this. I mean, there's only one guy who can sit and actively make changes to that game yesterday. And not just yesterday, this is the Motherwell game, this is the game before, this is every game so far this season. He's just not made the changes that we need to see in the moment. And that's why I would have got rid of him a while ago. I just don't think he's got that, or sorry, he does have that arrogance that his way is right and no other way will work. And he's so stubborn with this shape and this player and this movement kind of thing. And Ibrox is toxic because of the team and because of Beale just now. So to put the blame on the fans was a bit cheap for me, to be honest. I didn't like it at all.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree with you. I think that's absolutely fair. You put it very well as well, Perry's. That I'm going to ask you both very shortly who you want your new manager to be, so I'll give you some time to think about it. Not you, JB, however, because I want you to come in next. One of the things that almost all of the new signings that have came in, and bear in mind the rear end has been in Glasgow now for maybe about 3 months, they were brought in based on Michael Beale and the presentation that everyone heard about, and this was the plan, this was how it was going to be. I look at guys like Sam Lammers, who he went and spent time with in Italy. I look at guys like Jose Cifuentes, who we chased for this summer. I'm still not entirely sure why. I wonder where their mind is tonight, knowing that the guy that they've moved across Europe, right across the world in Cifuentes' case, I wonder where their mind is tonight, knowing that they're effectively starting again if the new guy comes in and doesn't fancy them. What does it mean for them? They'll soon know, because I'm relatively sure that if Alex Ray is assistant for a small period of time, they will absolutely hear Alex Ray shouting at them. There's no two ways about that.
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to think they'll see it as a fresh start, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. One thing about the Rangers fans, we'll get behind a player. Do you know what I mean? There's probably not a player other than maybe Butland. There's probably not a player in this current team, or certainly teams gone by and years gone by, that probably hasn't been on the ceiling or on the floor. Do you know what I mean? There's very few that kind of just float through the middle. I mean, John Lunston was the best on earth, and obviously, and then there was people in our group chat saying he's not even a professional footballer. So I know that's a bit tongue in cheek, but there is definitely there's just a higher expectation of players once they come to Rangers. Some players take to it instantly, some players thrive on it, and some players shrink. Unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of shrinking at the moment. I mean, poor Yilmaz, he can't shrink much more, but he's an example. That run in midweek, that was like us, like, right, he's arrived, he's here. I even heard somebody said that Dessers at the weekend could have his Yilmaz moment or his Barisic away at St Mirren moment. We will get behind the players if we think, one, they're giving it their all, and two, they're performing and they're winning. And if they're winning their individual battles, I mean, you think about, we haven't had that much success over the recent years in Europe. Obviously, getting to Seville was a great achievement. But game on game, we almost go, you know what? We give it a right good go. We've been outclassed maybe, or whatever it might be, but we give it a right good go. And when we have gone out of Europe, and you go, all right, yeah, sound, these things happen. Even when we were getting tonked by Celtic, we knew that our players weren't good enough. So therefore, we tried to stick with them and go, right, we'll keep demanding. I think the frustration where we are at the moment, though, is these are all good players. Let's have it right. I mean, I do think Michael Beale sees himself as a bit of a parole officer in terms of like, I'll try and revitalise them, and we've had a couple of dodgy few years, and I'm going to turn them round and get them back to being the best. I do think that there's a little bit of arrogance there potentially, and I also get that is the market that we're shopping in, of trying to bring players in that we can revitalise, i.e., your Todd Cantwell. I don't think you can have too many of them in your team. I think you need to have a core base of players that have been round the block, a core players of players who've won things. I mean, if you take out the 55 season and the Scottish Cup, I'd hate to see what the trophy count is amongst this current group of players. I'd be surprised if it's striking double digits, not necessarily for Rangers, but previous clubs that they've been at, which is horrendous for a Rangers team. If I think back of some of the signings, now I appreciate there was money in years gone by. We were bringing in captains from Serie A when we were bringing in guys like Joris Tern to come and sit on the bench. Yeah. Now, that's not set me up for a Lewis Ferguson pitch here, by the way, who's obviously just been made captain of Bologna. But we filled the team full of deadbeats and players who you're just hoping can spark, but you can't have too many of them. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing at the moment.
Do you know, the one thing that I thought very recently, and this is probably unfair, but I'll share it with you anyway. It was something Michael Beale said in a press conference not that long ago, and he sounded like a guy that spent a lot of time playing Football Manager at home. And I can't remember exactly what the quote was, but it just struck me as being a guy that spent a lot of time on these games studying players. I think it was he chased someone for a period of time, and I thought, wow, there's guys that'll be sitting in their bedroom trying to get Wickham up to the Premiership who are instantly associated with what Michael Beale's saying there. Cubby is absolutely right. The chapter is now over. Rangers are now looking forward to a 19th permanent manager. Iain, who's it going to be? Who do you think is going to come in as the new guy, whether it is October, November, December, January? Is it going to be this season? Could Stephen Davis surprise us all and hold on to the job for the next wee while?
Since you asked me this, I've been racking my brain for any name that stands out, and I've not got one. I've not got a clue. I want a Rangers man, but I don't see a Rangers man who's got the experience that we kind of look for and need right now. I mean, guys like Kevin Thompson, Barry Ferguson, even like Shota Arveladze, these guys haven't had a big gig. I mean, Shota Arveladze's maybe had the biggest of those three, and I wouldn't be too excited if he came in the door. I saw tweets this morning about Rhys McCabe with Airdrie. I mean, that's madness if someone can go from Airdrie to us, regardless how well they're doing. So I'm so torn because I want someone who knows the Scottish game, knows what Rangers is about, and just, you don't have that little learning period about that. Like, there's a lot of chat about like Ralph Hasenhüttl, who's known for good football, pressing football, aggressive football. That ticks a lot of the boxes that I would want to see us play.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he'd appreciate the job he's come into until, months down the line. So I don't know what I want to see, and I don't know what would work so well. But this is why I go back. I mean, Davis is fine for now, but if he loses in Sunday at St Mirren, he's going to get the same kind of, we need to fix this now. And he might look at rushing into an appointment. So there needs to be such a clear strategy in this, going, right, we're getting this role, and that's till this period of time, and stuff like that. So if you're looking for a name, I'd be on the phone to Graham Potter right now, just harassing him, just explaining, show what Roger's done. He came up here, turned Celtic around at the time, won trophies and got a big move back down to England. I don't think the money issue with Potter would be too big because he's probably still on millions a year from this Chelsea sacking. So I don't think he'd be like haggling about money too much. I mean, that's a very naive way to look at it. I get like he's commanding a big salary wherever he goes, I think, but that's the one that I think would be like, yeah, that's the name I want. Let's go for that and go from there. But there's still negatives to that, so there's no easy answer, sadly.
Do you know, it's interesting to hear your criteria because he said that it's someone who basically, like, a Rangers man, air commas, if you're listening to us, and someone who knows the Scottish game, which I think is absolutely fair. I just wonder, Iain, if you think Kilmarnock will be very easy to deal with.
It's worth an ask, you know. We turned it down the first time. Maybe now is the perfect time for that nice, cautious football we've all been wanting for.
Listen, I'm with you. I personally would like us to push the boat out for Graham Potter. I think if Graham Potter was to come in as the Rangers manager, there's no doubt whatsoever he would bring in Billy Reid, who's a big Rangers man, who I get the impression, I remember from watching him as the Hamilton sort of head coach, manager, if you like, could be a little bit captious. So there's no doubt in my mind that he would be at the edge of the dugout, sort of yelling the odds. I think it's important that the next appointment is always the most important one. I think we're all smart enough and the call to admit that. But this is a real test of John Bennett and James Bisgrove's mental, JB. I think it's really important that they get the right guy in. Structure's important as well, though. And this whole debate about whether we need a DOF in ahead of head coach, or if we need a head coach and then we bring in the DOF. And I'm curious to know where you stand on who you would like to get in. And I know it's not easy to sort of put your finger on a name and say he'd be great because we just don't know. But is there anyone that you think, I think he could maybe do something for us?
No, I think to Ian's point, Potter ticks a lot of boxes if he surrounds himself with the right people. If that structure's there from a coaching perspective, then, and there's a couple of people that know Scottish football, there's set pieces are massive up in Scotland. There needs to be somebody that can. We've got so many set pieces, and we've got a guy there apparently who's a set piece coach.
Yeah,
you're absolutely messing. Do you know what I mean? Sam Lamb was tough one. Was it in the midweek? And the lad nearly took the corner flag out with his corner. You know, like it was. There doesn't seem to be any quick moves or imagination or whatever it might be. Yeah. But I think it needs to be. If it's going to be Potter, then he's not the kind of figurehead person that I would like to see from a manager. In the fact that what's he won? Do you know what I mean? In terms of I can't say on one hand I'd love somebody that's coming out who's a winner and they've shown that he can win things in the past, and you go, well, what's he won? Did he win anything in Norway or Iceland or whatever it was, wherever he was? I'm not too sure. But he went to Swansea Rangers Football Club, and then. Yeah, and then that's a really good point. Did he do a Beale at Chelsea? Do you know what I mean? It's that big step up, and it's like when you're signing a player, you can sign a player who looks the business. He's got a little bit. You stick him in a Rangers shirt, it's night and day. But if the structure's there that sits behind him, I mean, the names that have been some of the names I wrote down: Muscat, Knutson's an interesting one. That one just won't go away. I think little Reese will probably just go straight to heaven if Knutson was to be announced. He's obviously someone that plays a brand of football that we were looking for. He's defied the odds, but again, not in the strongest of leagues. You might say our league's not particularly strong, but he's found a way to win with, again, on a wee bit of a shoestring budget, but no, a different market. Muscat's got his pros and cons in terms of, you can see what he's obviously started off in Australia, had a bit of a blip in Belgium, which I didn't know until today when I was doing a wee bit of research about him. And then obviously he was the guy that took over Postecoglou, who created a very good blueprint and a blueprint that it's gone down south, and he's got the Tottenham players running further than any manager has in the last few years. He's got them making more passes in the top end of the pitch, all things that we've seen over the last couple of years. So if Muscat kept that type of football going over there, and then collected with he was a bit of a mad bastard, wasn't he? So if that was something that is that an option? But again, people will probably point to go, oh, it's the easy option. I mean, nobody else is allowed to look at Asia for a manager now because it's been copyrighted by the other side of the city. Do you know what I mean? But I mean, we were linked with a player from South Korea, and it was like, you're not allowed to have him. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, again, there's not going to be a right answer with this one. It's going to be one that's going to split the fans' opinion. There's going to be pros and cons to any manager that comes in. So yeah, it's going to be wild couple of weeks. The only thing with Stephen Davis, it kind of feels a bit like, was it Durant that was put in charge for a League Cup game at Dunfermline? Was that covering McCoist when McCoist went? Was it for a couple?
Was that after Le Guin left?
What was it?
Was that after Le Guin left?
Was it Le Guin? I can't remember. I can just picture him. I think we went. I'm sure we went up to East End Park and we got turned over, and it was like, oh right, yeah, we're still rubbish type of thing. I don't think it was Le Guin. I'm sure it was further back than that because McDonald was with him, wasn't he? McDowell. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I keep saying that it's going to be interesting over the next few weeks. But what's coming up in the comments? I can't see. Is there anyone? Are we getting any inspiration in there?
So listen, there's a few names in there. I think Cam McCann has a really good point here. I don't think Muscat would be mentioned anywhere near the Rangers job if Ange Postecoglou hadn't came to these shows last year, personally, or the year before, rather. I think it's really hard to try and pick someone now. I really do. I think it's hard to sort of just arrive at someone and say, right, he'd be a really good appointment because of that. It's very, very difficult. And I think because we have obvious questions over the structure of how a new head coach or a manager would work, I don't think particularly helps whoever's going to come in next. I think it's all just a bit clunky just now. And as I say, right now is an absolute test of the mettle of James Bisgrove and John Bennett, because the next 3 weeks the focus will very much be on these guys to see what they can do and what they have up their sleeve to make things better. Terry Monroe, you're very kind indeed. Thanks very much. I'm glad having you. Been good having you back. Listen, guys, JB, I didn't think for a second we would have came on tonight to discuss the sacking of a Rangers manager. I'm really glad you found time to join us tonight. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, no, cheers. Yeah, thanks for having it on. It's I was thinking it was going to be a bit of a therapy session to have a bit of a deep dive through yesterday, so I scribbled down a few notes and I'd watched the highlights back twice. So yeah, thanks for that. But wasn't it? Yeah, interesting few weeks ahead. But yeah, we'll wait and see. Just while I'm on, we actually lost one of our members over the last couple of weeks down on the Wirral. Our good friend of ours, Tony Donoghue, passed away. So just want to give him a wee bit of a shout out and hopefully he's looking down on us. Absolutely. Condolences to you and everyone within the club. That's sad news, Jamie. I didn't realise that. Iain, good to have you on. As I said to Jamie, the last thing I expected tonight was us to be discussing this and Michael Beale no longer being the Rangers manager. So I'm really glad you've came on and given your tuppence worth. Thanks, mate. No, pleasure as always. Yeah, it went a bit more off topic than I thought it would, but nice and fun. So don't forget, if you are following us across social media already, thank you. If you're not, we're available on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok and Threads, which are apparently still things. All of our content, as Reese rightly points out, I assume he's got his nuts back in now that we've stopped talking about Knutson. Everything's free. So if you do want to follow us and get involved in everything we do, then we'll be very glad to have you back. We are back on Wednesday night when Kyle returns with the warm-up from 8:30. Lots to look forward to, and inevitably lots and lots to speak about. Of course, a trip to Cyprus on Thursday when we go up to Limassol. And of course, hot on the heels of that, a Sunday afternoon in Paisley, which is always a delight. I now disappear until November. I'm away on a holiday. Jamie, it's usually you that gets the break, mate, but it's my turn, so I'm going away this occasion. And I will be back in November. Guys, thanks for joining us tonight. Have a great week. Good luck to Rangers. on Thursday night. And don't forget, join Kyle 8:30 Wednesday night. Thanks for watching. Good night.